This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion.
So I caught the headline. This sell-off was caused by a computer-driven foot race. Drum roll, please. Guess who said it? Jim Cramer. The guy who is rolled out, I guess he never goes away. I just don't watch, so I don't know. But he gets a lot more press every time something in the markets happens that's surprising or big. They roll Cramer out and Cramer gives the pronouncement. This has been going on for decades. I mean, people are used to this. If there's a big downturn in stocks, Cramer is rolled out. Now, I have to imagine at some point in time, when I get close to wheelchair age, and assuming Cramer is still around and he's at wheelchair age, I imagine them literally pushing him out, screaming in the wheelchair about why stocks went down and who is to blame for that particular day. For that particular day being the key point, because the Oracle, and I don't know Jim, I've had some basic interactions over the years. I don't have any personal animosity. He's playing a role for a certain system, and I'm playing a role for a certain system as well, and I go after his system. That's just kind of how it works. But the idea that one person can just fill in the blanks and tell you what the hell is going on. Come on. So here in this case, and we're talking December 2018, Cramer, sell-off, computer-driven foot race. Now let's think about that for a second. Let's really think granular about that for a second. I'm not talking about the trading or markets aspect. The headline. Who the fuck wrote the headline? Well, the headline was written by some young punk who has great copywriting skills. Sell-off. It feels dangerous already. The sell-off after the stock market's gone straight up for 10 years. A 1 or 2% drop is a sell-off. It's the end of the world. And it was caused. We know for sure the direct connective tissue that the reason the stock market went down after 10 years of straight up, the reason on this particular day was a computer-driven foot race, Jim Cramer says. Now, Jim didn't write that headline, I'll guarantee you. There's people on staff that write these things, as I said, the young copywriters. And there is always, in these kinds of analysis that a guy like Cramer's putting out, there's always some truth to it. And then there's the fictional part. Of course, certain things are happening in the markets now after this big stock market run. Yield curve inversion. Rates are shifting. Things that we've not seen for 10 years. We have to dust off our memory banks to remember what chaos starts to look like after a decade of free money. But of course, after big runs, excesses in the system, they build up. Then eventually they get wrung out. But of course, it's very difficult to predict any of this. How does one know where we are at any point in time? You don't. The case that I make, the best thing that we can do, follow the price trend and have an exit strategy. That's the best we can do. So when Cramer goes ahead and says, we are blaming the computers, well, first off, what the hell is a computer? I mean, really? Well, we're talking about code by humans. So humans that write code on their servers to implement trades based on their rules that they have thought up are now reduced to computers. I mean, computers are humans and their capital making buy and sell decisions based on what they think is best at that moment. Doesn't Cramer do the same thing? Don't you do the same thing? No, what's really going on with a headline like this is that if you're fat and happy and you're a passive index buyer and all of a sudden after a 10-year run, you start to take it on the chin, well, you need a cheerleader for that, don't you? You need somebody to come out and tell you, oh my gosh, the market should be going still straight up for reasons I don't know, but now they're going down, so let's fucking blame somebody. Who are we going to blame? Maybe the smart people making better decisions. That's always a wise thing to do. Blame the smart guy making a better decision. Of course, when greed and fear and ego and envy and jealousy are at stake, in play, that's what you do. It's not what I do. I don't care. If someone made $1 billion last week because they were a fantastic short-term trader, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give them a great round of applause and wish them well. I would say they probably got lucky because any strategy that makes a ton of money on just like one day in a very short-term nature, that's tough to do. That's tough to repeat. So yeah, some people might implement that kind of strategy, not where I'd try to go here. But from Cramer's perspective, he makes the case, he draws a comparison with football. He says, look, some plays can seem risky, but when you consider the percentage chances of them going right, there's no choice but to implement them in the field. These programs make the same kind of calculation. Obviously. Odds, probabilities. This is life. Uncertainty. When you're dealing with uncertainty, you make the best bet that you can. You don't just sit there because you're part of the crowd, the passive index investing crowd that doesn't have to think. Maybe we are at a point in time where we have to think more. I mean, you always have to think when you're in the markets. I mean, even if you've just been long for 10 years, that's a strategy that you have to think about because ultimately, what happens if it reverses? We've seen this in the last 20 years. You can go way up 100% and come way down 50%. That doesn't make any sense. So you need a strategy. Now, look, if you really want to read my in-depth, detailed take on why passive indexing is just not where you should be, my 2017 edition of Trend Following, 220,000 words, lays out the detail. I would highly recommend the hardcover. The hardcover and or the audiobook, but the hardcover is a massive beast. I don't know, it's like 2 inches thick, I think, something like that. Again, 220,000 words. Even if you don't read it, you can kill somebody with it. Now you might be saying to yourself, what do you mean you can kill somebody with it? It's heavy, it's big. So if you're lazy and you don't want to read it, you can use it as a weapon. Tangent over, let me get back to Cramer. And to quote Cramer a little bit more on his explanation. Why? And he's talking about why do hedge funds do this? Why? Because historically this situation has produced negative results for the bank stocks. And these hedge funds are trying to get out ahead of others who fear those negative results, but just don't know they're going to fear them. It's a foot race. Cramer goes on. This curve, as they call it, overrides whatever you hear about good employment or consumer balance sheets or robust lending. It's predictive, end quote. What I love about that is Cramer's laying his cards on the table. Whatever you hear about good employment or consumer balance sheets or robust lending. Now, let me ask you, does anybody listening make an investment decision because you heard about robust lending? So you take the money that you have in your pocket and you fucking go and you fucking bet on fucking stocks or fucking commodities or fucking whatever because you heard about robust lending? You heard about robust lending. Are you serious? Or better yet, you take your hard-earned capital, your limited capital, and we all have limited capital, whether it's me, you, or the billionaire behind the tree. But good employment? Good employment makes you make investment decisions, trading decisions. You exit a particular market or a trade because of good or bad employment. No, you don't. I don't believe anybody does. I believe it's all bullshit. It's 100% bullshit. I don't believe Wall Street does it. I don't believe Cramer does it. I want to see Cramer's investing strategy that says I will be long or short based on good employment. Wherever that's reported, I guess you see a headline in the Wall Street Journal and there's a number, it's 4% employment. I'm long stocks. It's 3.5% employment. I'm short stocks. You got to be kidding me. This is all entirely made up. And yes, I'm pretty passionate today. I'm not sure why, but it's certifiably nuts. What about this? Consumer balance sheets. Cramer's implying that we should make investment decisions based on what our fucking neighbor is doing. So if our neighbor is sitting at his house, watching a lot of porn or buying a lot of weird crap on Amazon, we should thus then buy or sell based on that. Can someone connect the dots for me? How does that work exactly? You hear what about consumer balance sheets? You hear what about consumer whatever, and you take what decision? You buy what? You sell what? Based on what? Are there rules for this? Please share them with me. Can someone email me the rules? Now, the flip side of this, my very pragmatic, and I will try to calm down view, why not just skip all this nonsense? Why not just skip all this nonsense that nobody can know and go straight to the price? The price is up. I don't care what the hell the market is. You're long. The price is down. I don't care what the hell the market is. You're either out of that market or you're short. Isn't that a lot more simple than worrying about whether or not Frank or Bob next door has purchased a lot of porn that week or not? Or has high credit card debt or not? Or can't pay his kids' school bills or not? Now, Cramer goes on to say, and here's where I think a little bit of the truth gets sprinkled in. Cramer goes on to say, quote, here's the problem. There are now so many hedge funds using the same algorithm, same programs, that there simply aren't enough investors willing to take the other side of the trade. If we all know that stocks go down in certain triggers, then who the heck would want to buy stocks? Question mark, end quote. So there you go. If the computers all tell stocks to go down, then there's no buyers. What about this? What about another way to look at it? The honest way, in my humble opinion. I'm not saying Jim is dishonest. I'm just saying he's taking a perspective where he's leaving quite a bit out, in my opinion. And we're talking stocks right now. That's the issue. That's where people's focus about current volatility. But stocks have gone straight up for 10 plus years, right? This is crazy. What a run. Maybe it's not 10 plus years. It's about 10 years exactly almost. So do markets always go up? Is that the way that it works? I don't think so. So when does Cramer expect markets to go down? So if we all of a sudden start to have volatility, and we can all go do the back test, we can all go back in time and look to see what increased volatility looks like. Well, first, it's a cautionary flag. It means something might be happening where we should pay attention and we should adjust our positions. We should be ready to possibly either get out of the market or go short. Cramer is essentially saying that we have no control. The computers have taken over. Consumer balance sheets are not important. I have to laugh about this. I have to go back to this for a second. Can you imagine, really, in your heart of hearts, have you ever had a conversation with anybody where they said, yeah, you know what? I'm betting my money today because I read a report about consumer balance sheets. And your buddy, Bob or Frank or Tom or Dick or Harry or whatever, says, oh yeah, Mike, I agree with you. The consumer balance sheets, they're crazy now. Let's make a bet. This doesn't happen. This is nonsensical. I've been at this game for a long time, offering commentary. I try to keep things what I call evergreen. I want my comments on this podcast, I want my views in this podcast to be timeless. I don't want to be a guy that's sitting around trying to tell you what's happening right now, because that guy's full of shit. Who wants to be full of shit? Who wants to be judged years from now, decades from now? It's just a guy who was a blabbermouth. I'm not saying that's Jim Cramer. Everybody has to draw their conclusions about everybody, about Jim, about me, about whoever. That's up to you guys. I just try to stay consistent. Let's tear these things apart. Let's look at the analysis. Up from down, right from wrong. Let's be even keeled. Stay in the moment, make good decisions, have a good philosophy, and don't get worked up because people are screaming. That's another one too. Have you ever made a good decision because somebody was screaming? Ever? Have you ever made a good decision about anything because someone was rocking and rolling and screaming their nuts off and all that kind of stuff? Now, of course, I get a little passionate on this podcast, but as you can see right now, I do have the ability to lower myself. I like to take the passion up sometimes just to get attention. Not attention in a silly way to like get attention, but to just emphasize. To me, the spoken word is just all about emphasis. How can you take your tone to a certain place to bring that point across? I like to play with it. But I don't want to scream like a madman. I want to lay out the facts. I want to lay out the case. The idea of blaming computers in 2018, coming into 2019, that notion is silly. Because everyone has a computer. Everyone has a phone that's a computer. Everyone is tracking everything. Everyone is using these tools. Everyone understands probabilities. Everyone saw the movie Moneyball. Everyone saw The Big Short. Everyone knows about technology. Everyone knows about rules. Everyone knows about systems. And if you don't, that's on you. So all this consternation, all this belly aching that you hear at moments of chaos are just people who are jealous. I'm not saying Jim is jealous. I'm saying he probably represents a certain view that is jealous. And hell, we have no idea if the algorithms that are currently being ridiculed by the big finance shows, we have no idea if they will even work this particular time. Again, this is all about probabilities. It's not about guarantees. You can't guarantee a damn thing. As Clint Eastwood said, if you want to guarantee, buy a fucking toaster. He didn't say fucking I did. That's the way to think about this stuff. I've seen in the last few weeks more of the emails. You can see the panic in people. What do I do now? What the hell were you doing before? You know? What do you mean, what do you do now? What were you doing before? So you had no plan before. Like, look in the mirror. What do you do now? Seriously, that's the craziest question. What do you do now? Like somehow or another, your plan was so great and now it fell apart and now you don't know what to do. No, you didn't know what the hell to do to begin with and you just got lucky. And then when the shit hit the fan, then you got nervous and you start sending emails and calling people and wearing your emotions on your sleeve with no particular idea of what to do except to just complain and scream and make crazy predictions yourself. I have to tell you, my best bit of advice as a 50-year-old guy, my best bit of advice, learn to do yoga. I'm not joking. Look, I'm not some hippie guy at all. Hell, I was a baseball catcher for 10 years. I understand gritty sports. But something happens to you in the middle of a yoga practice. And yes, I am absolutely starting with Kramer, working my way through the proper way to think, and ending with the best piece of market advice that I can give today for the rest of your life: start yoga. Now, you might think that's crazy. Well, I probably would think you are crazy. If you do think it's crazy, maybe you might want to consider that you are inexperienced. You might want to consider there's something that you don't know. You might want to find out why that former baseball catcher that liked getting hit and liked hitting other people likes to do yoga now. What does it do to you? What does it do for you? What does it enable one's mind to find? The most important thing it allows all of us to find is clarity. And don't worry if you can't do the crazy stuff like the full splits like me. And yes, I can do the full splits. And I guess that's an odd brag. But you know what? If you're practicing yoga with a room full of beautiful women and they happen to all be between the ages of 25 and 35, you know, you learn to do some things that are pretty damn crazy. Now, that has nothing to do with the mental side of yoga. That's a completely another side of yoga. And I'm not trying to imply something untoward there either. It's just a fact of life, ladies and gentlemen, that if you practice yoga, you will be around more women. And a lot of alpha women, I must say. Women that are good at yoga are alpha. It's quite fun, quite interesting. That is a definite side tangent to the discussion of yoga, alpha women. I'll save that for another podcast episode. So there you go. There's my recommendation to deal with computers are taking over the world, to deal with algos are taking over the world, to deal with the fact that you don't understand the consumer balance sheet or employment rates. My solution for making money in the markets, a yoga practice. And for those of you that think I'm completely crazy to say that, completely batshit crazy to say that, that's okay. One day, I'll win you over.
I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.